Gil Martin here, and welcome to episode 6 of the Daily Packers Post as we take a look at issues surrounding the Green Bay Packers. Don't forget to check out thepackerspost.com for all of our articles. We have updates daily so you can keep up to date with everything happening to your Green Bay Packers. Today, I wanted to discuss 5 players who need to step their game up in week 2 in order for the Packers to emerge victorious. And look, it won't be easy to win, assuming Jordan Love is not available and the Packers will have to face the Indianapolis Colts without him in the lineup. Malik Willis going to make his first start with the Packers, his 4th career NFL start. But I do want to say Jordan Love, if he wasn't injured, would be on this list because he was very inconsistent over the course of the season opener against the Eagles. Part of that was due to injuries he seemed to be dealing with, which may have been turf related. And part of it was just his accuracy, his consistency wasn't there. But that's not going to be an issue most likely this week. Here are the 5 players that I mentioned. And keep in mind, these are not the only 5 players who didn't have a good game against the Eagles. Unfortunately, there were plenty of them. But at the same time, these 5 players stood out a little bit more in my mind. We'll start with linebacker Isaiah McDuffie. And, McDuffie was credited with 6 tackles in the game against Philadelphia, but he was also credited with a couple of missed tackles, which is not typical of him. He was also covering Saquon Barkley on that 18-yard touchdown pass that Barkley caught in the second quarter that put the Eagles up at the time 7-6. Now, the issue with McDuffie and Eric Wilson as well, you've got 2 rookies who were drafted this year on day 2, Tyron Hopper and Edgerrin Cooper. You got to figure those 2 players will be fighting McDuffie and Wilson for playing time and eventually for starting jobs. Cooper looked good in his very limited plays that he was on defense. Hopper showed, some hitting ability and some potential. It's just a question of when, in my mind, that Cooper and Hopper end up taking over those jobs. McDuffie, I like him. He's an all-out effort guy. He works hard. He's a smart football player, although he does have size and athleticism limitations. Hopefully, he'll be able to step up in game 2 and beyond to play a little bit better. Next on the list is center Josh Myers. Myers, again, one of those guys who the Packers always seem to be looking to upgrade from, but they never seem to find a way. He is a very inconsistent player. At times he'll make blocks and you're just like, wow, that was really, really great. And then at times when he makes a mistake, he doesn't usually just get beat. He whiffs. He looks very bad when he makes an error. And, he was flagged for a penalty. His run blocking, according to Pro Football Focus, graded out poorly. And he allowed 2 quarterback pressures during the game. Now, coming up this week with Willis likely to start, it is going to be vital for the offensive line to open up some holes for Josh Jacobs and to obviously give Willis enough time to throw because, let's face it, Willis is not very familiar with the offense, isn't familiar with his teammates yet. You get the feeling that the playbook will be shortened and I don't want to say dumbed down, but it'll be shortened and it'll kind of be designed to emphasize the things that Willis does well. So protecting Willis and opening up holes for Josh Jacobs, Emmanuel Wilson, and if he's healthy, Marshawn Lloyd is going to be really important for the offensive line. Josh Myers needs to have a better game. I think you could say the same about Sean Ryan and Rasheed Walker to an extent, at least as far as run blocking is concerned. But I think Josh Myers was sort of the most noticeable of the players on the offensive line who kind of struggled throughout the course of this game. Third on the list, I'm going with linebacker Quay Walker. And Walker didn't have a bad game statistically. If you just look at the box score, he made 11 total tackles. One of those was a tackle for loss. But his judgment just doesn't seem to be where it needs to be. And here he is now in his third season. You would think, he's got all the athletic tools. He accelerates well. He's fast. He can run down plays across the field. But the one weakness he seems to have is when you run right at him and sort of knowing when to make a play. He very often will get into the opposing backfield with a burst of speed and then miss the ball carrier and miss the tackle, or over pursue and run himself out of the play. So, he may be better off playing on the weak side rather than in the middle. That way he could run down, if you run away from him, he'll be in a better position to run down the play. And you're sort of limiting his options as far as, what hole he can go through and how he can attack. But either way, Walker needs to make better decisions. And hopefully we will see that from him this week and beyond. This is an important year for Quay Walker. At the end of this season, GM Brian Gutekunst needs to determine whether or not to exercise the fifth-year option on both Quay Walker and Devontae Wyatt, the 2 first-round picks from that draft. He needs to have a big season, or else the Packers are unlikely to pick up the option. I am hoping for more from Quay Walker. He's shown flashes. He just needs to make some more big plays, and he needs to be able to just, make his reads a little bit better. This is his third NFL season. It's time for him to take the next step. Next on this list, in my mind, is Luke Musgrave. And look, Musgrave and Tucker Kraft are the top 2 tight ends. And last year, very rarely were they out there together on the field at the same time. Musgrave played the first 9 or 10 games where he got almost all the offensive snaps, and Kraft was just in blocking situations. I think he had, 3 catches in the first 9 games before Musgrave got hurt. And then Musgrave, missed a lot of time due to that lacerated kidney he suffered. Kraft stepped in and did his thing. Against the Eagles in week 1, Musgrave was only on the field for 17 snaps. He had 2 targets, ran 8 pass routes, did not catch a pass. And who was the target on the 1 interception that Jordan Love threw in this game? Luke Musgrave. Now, look, part of the reason that Kraft got more snaps could have to do with matchups, but I think it was clear as the game went on that Luke Musgrave was not having a great game, that throwing to Tucker Kraft underneath or as a check down and letting him run 5-10 more yards after he makes the catch was working better than sending Luke Musgrave 10-15 yards down the field to try to get open and split the seam. Now, the matchups may change against the Colts. That is always a possibility. But realistically speaking, the Packers need to get a better performance from Luke Musgrave than what they got in game 1. No catches, 2 targets, only 8 pass patterns and 17 snaps. That's just not what you want from a second-round pick. I am confident that Musgrave can bounce back and have a better game. And I think he'll pick up his play over the course of the season, but we need more from Luke Musgrave. And I will say this, the combination of Luke Musgrave and Tucker Kraft on paper has the potential to be the Packers' most dangerous pass-catching duo at tight end, probably since you had Mark Chmura and Keith Jackson in 1995 and 1996. And obviously 96 was the year the Packers won Super Bowl 31 with Mike Holmgren, Brett Favre, and company. So it is going to be important. And I think this week, with Malik Willis likely being the starting quarterback, that having both tight ends, both Musgrave and Kraft, available and ready and just able to give quality targets to Malik Willis will be even more important than it was last week with Jordan Love under center. Fifth on this list and final on this list is cornerback Jaire Alexander. And, Alexander is the Packers' top cover corner. He's considered a shutdown corner, one of the best cornerbacks in the league, and he's paid like it. Up until, this offseason, he was the highest paid corner in the NFL history. He has now been surpassed, but he's still right up there near the top. He had a rough game against the Eagles. According to Pro Football Focus, A.J. Brown of Philadelphia caught 4 passes for 108 yards and a 67-yard touchdown pass against Jaire Alexander in the season opener. Now, Alexander did make an interception in the end zone. It was an important interception at the time, but he then made a mistake. He danced around in the end zone, ran around and around, and eventually opted to run the ball out of the end zone and try to run it back. Instead of downing it, he only ended up at the 15-yard line, and that ended up costing the Packers some field position. Now, look, I have no illusions about the fact that A.J. Brown is one of the more dangerous pass catchers in the NFL. Brown is fast. He is dynamic. He has good hands. He can make any cornerback look bad. And the interception was a big play, even if Alexander needs to handle, what he does after he makes the pick. He needs to be a little smarter about how he handles the run back. All good. But, Jaire Alexander, for the Packers to win consistently, is going to have to play at the top of his game. Last year, he was limited to 7 games. We had the 1-game suspension for conduct detrimental to the team. We had injuries. He didn't play his best football. He needs to reestablish himself as a Pro Bowl caliber corner. Week 1 was a rough start for Jaire. The Packers need him at his best. Eric Stokes actually had a better game last week than Jaire Alexander. Very encouraging to see Stokes doing well, but now Alexander needs to step up, and the Packers need more from John Money if they hope to, again, win a game, especially if they have to win this game without Jordan Love. And look, it may be 1 week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, up to 6 weeks. The Packers are hoping it's on the lower end of the spectrum, but let's face it, the defense as a whole and the offensive line and Josh Jacobs, these are all players who are going to need to step up. Jaire Alexander, a big part of that defensive equation, and hopefully he bounces back and has a better game this week. That is it for this episode of the Daily Packers Post. Don't forget, we're going to be here a lot this season, almost every day, bringing you some interesting Packer talk and breaking down and analyzing what's happening to the Packers. And don't forget to check out our website, www.thepackerspost.com, where every day we will bring you insight and analysis on your Green Bay Packers. I'm Gil Martin. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. Have a great day, and go, Pack, go.